Within the film industry, many moments from classic films will end up being cut out. Even the most popular horror franchises can be a prime example of this, with both Alien 3 and The Exorcist 4 having many cutscenes that the re-edited versions basically became different movies. In fact, when it came to The Exorcist, it literally became a different movie, but what does this have to do with Child's Play? Well, Child's Play itself is an extremely cut-up version of a much longer movie. A 3-hour long movie, in fact, or 2 hours depending on the source. But the questions are, what were these cut scenes? Why were they cut? And how different would a franchise be if this version of the film was released instead of the one that we got? Now, just quick disclaimer, most of this information comes from a 2018 Hollywood Reporter interview, as well as a Child's Play wiki, so fully reliable here on the horror critics, so I'll be referencing that interview from the Hollywood Reporter a lot, and if you want to check it out yourself, there will be a link in the description. So with that out of the way, let's look through the Lost Child's Play extended cut. Now, there's a lot of scenes which were cut down or just removed entirely, so I'm going to be listing them with their own little intro videos, which will be much shorter than the normal ones, as it's much easier for me to say and do, and for you guys to understand. Also, there are many little 5-second sequences which were cut, such as when Chucky attacks Norris in the car, but they literally add nothing and it's like one shot, so I'm not going to be including them, because otherwise I'm going to be here for about an hour. The first cutscene would have actually been before the movie we got began, with Detective Norris in drag, essentially, trying to catch Charles Lee Ray, who I'll be calling Chucky throughout this video because it's much easier. Norris would have left a bar in drag as the car with Chucky and his accomplice, aka Eddie Caputo, is following Norris. Chucky would have stalked him into an alleyway for Norris to reveal himself by taking off his wig, and then he kicks Chucky in the dick, which sounds amazing. Chucky would have thrown a trash can at Norris before running away, which would lead into the opening scene which we got in the final film. When the movie actually begins, you can see Norris throwing an undescript clothing object to the ground, and it's been revealed that is the dress from the start. So, I've seen Child's Play at least, I'd say about 30 odd times, if not more, and just that intro part, I've never really noticed it. I mean, I've seen it, but it's never really registered, so to know this, it's awesome. The scene, however, was cut because the producers wanted the film to start straight in the action instead of being a little bit slower at the beginning, which is understandable. So for our first alternative scene, it would have been pretty cool and featured Chucky holding the good guy doll in his left arm whilst he's set up and begins his chant, what we see at the start of the film. Norris will be hunting him down in the store like usual before Chucky falls to the ground and begins the chant scene in the final film. The scene also featured a little more dialogue from Chucky, not seen in the final version, and a different sentence when he threatens Norris and Eddie, with Eddie's threat basically not being there. Luckily, this deleted scene can actually be found online, which is not something I can say for the rest of them, and it's the only sequence to surface to date, and the reason this was cut was either for continuity reasons, or most likely to cut down the runtime. If I'm being realistic, it doesn't need to be there, but it's still pretty neat how this is the last surviving lost footage. Now, this scene is essentially just an extended part of when Andy shows Chucky his room. It's not overly interesting, there's like a train set and shit, but it does show Andy actually acknowledging his father and his father's death, revealing it, which isn't really touched upon properly in the final film, so I'm glad to see it, but once again, this scene was most likely cut for timing. Now, during this scene where Eddie Caputo gets barbecued, there was originally a shot of Andy falling into a ditch just prior to the explosion, explaining why he was unharmed by an entire fucking house exploding into little bits and pieces, but the film kind of glossed over it in the final cut, and once again, it was most likely cut for time, but honestly, I think we could have spared 10 seconds. Now, probably the most famous cutscene with a lot of stills, which I'm going to be putting up throughout this edit. This one is kind of awesome, and it showed Dr. Death, aka the voodoo guy, healing a sick child with the child's mother, and he's dressed up in this weird as shit voodoo priest outfit. It would have featured a different voodoo chant from the now infamous Damballa chant, and would have actually shown the full power of voodoo in the universe, with the child being cured of its illness. Dr. Death would have also given the family an amulet, the same one used in Child's Play 4, aka Bride of Chucky, and they leave him as he takes off the voodoo robes, which would be when Chucky enters the window, as seen in the final film, and does his cute little speech. This scene was also most likely cut for timing, which I just think is dumb. This scene being cut makes a lot more sense compared to the rest, and to be honest, everything that's said in it is said in the final film anyway. Essentially, the scene would have just featured Norris and Andy's mother Karen going to the toy store where Chucky died at the start of the film, and Norris would have given her a huge exposition dump on Chucky's crimes before they'd seen a bunch of undamaged toys next to the store, explaining how the homeless guy, aka the peddler, got the doll, which set all this movie in motion. This scene was also most likely cut for time, and honestly, everything that would have been said in this scene we already knew anyway. Nothing was really that important, and I can't blame them for cutting it out, but I can't know for certain from what was actually said, as the scene is completely lost, but still, I'm kind of okay with this one being cut. In a scene very similar to the one we got in Cult of Chucky, Andy's psychiatrist would have put a normal good guy doll in Andy's room during the clinic mental hospital scenes and tells Andy it's his Chucky and tries to show him the doll is not alive. Andy doesn't believe him though, leading to the doctor giving up and leaving the room with the fake Chucky. It's most likely this scene was cut for timing, and if we're being realistic, this scene's been done both in Child's Play 2 and Cult of Chucky, so it did come back in some way or another. Sticking with the clinic for a little bit, we have another small cutscene where Chucky would have climbed up into Andy's window and tried to attack him, leading Andy blocking it with a table, leading to him doing his next plan in another cutscene. And this was also most likely cut for timing and because it wasn't that relevant, but a Chucky murder scene, or attempted murder scene, being lost to time still sucks. Now for possibly the biggest lost scene or scenes. It once again focuses around the clinic, and throughout the whole mental hospital storyline, Andy would have made friends with a young girl called Mona, with Mona and Andy becoming good friends during a bunch of small, mostly unknown scenes, which would have led to Chucky tricking her when he finally got into the clinic by saying he was also Andy's friend, leading to her opening the door to his room, which is how Chucky got in, as seen in the final version. Good news though, Mona does actually appear in the final film in a much smaller role as the little girl who tells Karen that Chucky was looking for Andy. Now this scene was also most likely cut for timing and adds very little to the main plot, however it does explain the weird jump cut of Chucky about to enter the room and then being in the room with the door closed behind him. I'm guessing there was a Mona part of cinema stood in the doorway and they had to remove it to get rid of her character. Now, last but not least, I won't lie to you, this ending sounds hilariously cheesy and some of it sounds possibly fake, but let's go with it anyway. So for the part I believe, after Chucky breaks into the apartment and Andy hides, Andy would have set up an RC car with a knife taped to it to attack Chucky by stabbing him in the leg and then the kid spraying like drain cleaner in his face, causing Chucky a lot of pain and damaging him slightly. Now this does explain the weird damp hair look he has for the rest of the sequence in the final movie, which is why I believe it's real. And this is when I stopped believing this, as it just doesn't make any sense, and I'll explain when I get to the why was it cut section a bit more, but apparently Chucky choked Andy out with a slinky instead of hitting him in the head with a bat, and after Chucky knocks out Norris, Karen throws Chucky into the fire on her own as the police arrive with Norris's partner Jack. Now Jack himself would have knocked Chucky's head off instead of Karen shooting it off as seen in the final film, leading it to it biting a police officer until Karen shoots Chucky in the heart. With Chucky apparently saying "I love you, Heidi ho, ha ha ha," despite how infamously difficult working with the doll was, so two different death scenes would have been a nightmare to do, especially if one of them was lost. The film would have apparently ended with Jack buying everyone a drink, and they all believe it was just a weird coincidence, which is odd. Now, it's more than likely that this part was just in the original script and never actually filmed, as the wiki is a bit confused at times for what is actually a lost scene and what's part of a script. But the part with Andy in the RC car is most likely true, as I said, Chucky has wet hair for a lot of the scene, and Andy is seen entering the closet with a bat and an RC car, so it was most likely just cut for timing. Honestly, losing some of these is a huge shame. Whilst I understand the RC car, toy store and Chucky attacking Andy's window, them all being cut, the loss of the voodoo scene, Andy's dad and the whole Mona subplot really damn sucks, especially Andy's dad. Come on, that's 10 seconds, you could stick that in. Also, Norris dressed as a woman would have been just hilariously funny and most likely very cringy nowadays, especially with I'm very strong on the left side of politics, so I would have probably cringed, but I think I would have still loved it for like the 80s irony kind of thing for how much things have progressed since then. But Andy's dad and Mona, I don't get why that was cut. However, the extra part of the chant at the start Andy falling into a ditch and fake Chucky scenes I can live without, but I don't think they were too long to leave out the final cut, and cutting them for timing seems a little bit of a waste of time in my opinion. According to David Kirshner and Don Mancini, the original cut was just way too long. It featured way too much Chucky for a mystery film, and the face was kind of off. The film just didn't really know what it was doing yet and needed trimming down like most movies do when they're still on their first assembly cut. Tom Holland confirmed the Chucky part, stating they wanted to cut the amount of screen time of the doll, which led to a lot of tension with Holland leaving the project during post-production, even though Kirshner still states to this day he did a great job at directing the film. And quickly going back to that final alternative ending thing, with Holland leaving the project, no other scenes were filmed. They could only edit what they already had with the option of new voiceovers, so no, there couldn't have been a completely different ending like that kind of states for it. So essentially it was cut because audiences weren't the biggest fans of the original version, and neither were the producers, so understandably it had to be cut down in order to streamline the film as much as possible and try to make Chucky appear more mysterious and save him for essentially the film's final act. It's where the characters in the audience finally understand what's actually happening and the doll is killing people. Obviously now, it's extremely well known, like there's 8 movies in total including the reboot, so it's well known, but back then it was kind of a mystery before the film came out for if it's the doll or if it's the kid. It's still a shame that Holland got so upset he left the project, but I can also understand where the producers are coming from, trying to make the film a bit more mysterious and cut the runtime down to get more box office cash. Now, obviously, I can't go into another dimension and find out this information, but I can speculate, and speculating is fun, so let's fucking do it. As stated, audiences did not like this version of the film that much. It didn't sound like they disliked it, but in horror, getting a 2 out of 10 for reviews is ironically better than getting a 5 out of 10, because if we're being realistic, people love bad movies. It's just a thing we do because we're stupid creatures. I adore bad movies, but no one likes a boring movie. In all likelihood, if this version was the one released into cinemas, it wouldn't have made as much money or the weird cultural impact it immediately made, and it probably would have been forgotten about as a weird and overly long killer doll movie, essentially meaning we might have not got a franchise if this version was released in cinemas. However, I do need to state I am very sad that the footage from this film seems to be completely lost with no chance of ever recovering it, as I would like to see it. Some of the scenes do sound very interesting, and anything Chucky is good with me. Even Seed of Chucky. Judge me if you will, but I do think they made the right call of cutting it down. Still, it sucks they didn't keep the footage for a future director's cut, because I'd love to see it, and especially that starting scene with Norris in drag. That's just the kind of schlocky 80s cheese I absolutely adore as a horror fan. So it sucks, but I think it is for the best because we would not have the franchise we have today otherwise. Thank you very much for watching. I am sorry that this video is so late. I don't do this part scripted, just in case you're wondering. We've hit 200 subs! Holy shit, thank you very much to everyone who's subscribed. I know a few of you are from me just plugging it in certain apps, and a lot of you are probably from the different Facebook groups. Some of you probably followed for Godzilla, for Friday 13th, for Alien, for pretty much anything I've covered in the past, but still, thank you. This is absolutely awesome as hell, and it just kind of motivates me more to make more videos, and there is going to be a video on Friday. Once again, I'm sorry that this one came out late. I had some personal issues I had to deal with. It's been very stressful as this lockdown, and seeing how much politics keep fucking it up, it's starting to hurt my brain and my OCD a little bit, so I'm going to try to be a little bit better. I've got the video planned for Friday where we're going to be looking into the 2 TV movie cuts of Child's Play 2 and 3, and then next week we're going to be going on to my personal rankings of them, which have changed since last week. They change daily. I really like this franchise. It's the only franchise I know of that I don't dislike any of the films. There's some I like less, aka Seed of Chucky, and probably Bride of Chucky, as fun as that one is, but I don't dislike any of the movies. I wanted to dislike the reboot, but I didn't, so I couldn't even choose that to be in last place, so it sucked. But yeah, and then the week after that, I'm going to be going back to Godzilla for a little bit to look at some of the lost parts of the lost parts of the Godzilla franchise, such as Godzilla vs. Wolfman, the fan movie from the 1980s, which is starting to resurface again. So who knows, my video may be out of date by the time I actually release it. But still, thank you very much for watching, thank you for 200 subscribers, and I will see you all on Friday, hopefully, I'm sorry. Goodbye.